Hey guys, we are here today in Valheim, having a little discussion about the Mistlands biome. Now I for one thoroughly enjoyed the Mistlands and had a good time in the last playthrough I did. But that does not mean that Mistlands are perfect and without flaw. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the changes that I would like to see in the Mistlands and a few things I would like added or adjusted, since it's very clear that Iron Gate does listen to the community and they are willing to change things or alter things about their game to make it better. So the first thing I would like to see change about the Mistlands is the Wisplight itself. Personally, I like the fact that it takes the belt slot of Meganjord and forces you to make a decision on if you want more carry weight or the ability to see at all. But like a lot of other people have pointed out, I would love to see this thing have an upgrade feature and allow me to add more wisps to the light to increase its radius and its overall effectiveness. This would give you a real sense of progression in the Mistlands and make you feel like you're actually accomplishing something and moving forward while you're in the biome, instead of the mist always encompassing you to the same degree. Now, if the Wisplight just required silver and wisps to increase it and to upgrade it, that wouldn't be very difficult, and everyone would likely have their wisp at quality 4 right away. So I think they should add other materials to it in order to upgrade it, whether that material is a little more finite like black core, or if they should make it to where you need to enhance your wisp with some magical essence and use refined Iter. The other thing I would kind of like to see adjusted in terms of lighting is the Dverger Lanterns. Now, I don't exactly know what I would like to see changed on these, but they seem kind of pointless at the moment since they don't repel mist at all, and it doesn't exactly make a lot of lore sense that the Dverger are using them anyway for all their buildings, since they do not help. I would like to see these things have some interaction with the mist, whether it's repelling it in a large area, since you do need to hold it in your hand instead of a weapon, which makes the Wisplight still something that you would need to carry with you, and the Dverger Lantern would be a more powerful source if you're willing to give up a weapon slot. Or if making them repel the mist would be a little redundant with the Wisplight, maybe they could make them have some interaction with Seekers, like repelling Seekers away from you in a way that the torch does with Grey Dwarfs, or make it like a wishbone, where it changes colors or pings the light as you approach soft tissue, since the Dverger are clearly hunting that and creating mine and dig sites around them. Regardless of what the change is, I feel like they need to add something to Dverger Lanterns to make them make more sense in the Mistlands for why these dwarves are using them in all their outposts. Now, while we're talking about the mists, I would love to see them add a way to repel mists in a large area and in a more permanent fashion. I think there's a lot of neat ideas about how to do this. The ones that I like the sound of is to create a machine we can build that repels mists around a large area so you can see your base or operate a base without having to litter the area with little wisp torches. Another way you could do it is have the infested mines hold maybe a seeker hive or nest that once destroyed removes mist in a small area around the mine, giving you a reason to dungeon delve even once you've acquired all the black cores you need. If you went with a method like this where you're using seeker hives or nests and it's added to the game in order to produce mist out of them, you could even add them into the open world and have you come across seeker nests and hives that spawn seekers much like Grey Dwarf spawners, giving you something to hunt out in the open. The third idea I have is to make it to where the mist is emanating from the ancient roots due to all the magical essence inside. Once you put a sap extractor on these ancient roots and drain them of their essence, the mist repels in that area. Now, I think to make this work, you would need to make it to where ancient roots don't regenerate over time. Doing this would make it to where you actually need to use the sap extractors and move them with your ship to different Mistland biomes, which my group never had to do. We just waited for the sap to come back. And we were never really hindered by the fact that these extractors are not teleportable. Making the ancient roots a finite resource forces you to use the ships and move to different Mistlands biomes, and would also be nice in the progression mechanic that once you wipe out the roots, the mist is gone in that area, allowing you to put down your own roots in the form of a base on that Mistlands biome that you've already cleared. It would create more exploration, more adventure for the refined Iter, and give you somewhat of a sense that you have defeated this Mistlands biome by clearing the mist in it. Regardless of what form it takes, I think they need to be adding some form of mist removal, whether it's in a medium area or a large area, because as it stands, there does seem to lack a sense of progression and accomplishment in the Mistlands, since you can never defeat the hardest enemy in it, which is the mist itself. Once you get a handle on fighting the mobs, they're actually not that bad, and the mist is the real enemy, not being able to see where you're going or retrace your steps a lot of the time. Another thing I would like to talk about is the Dverger Faction themselves. While I like the fact that there is a neutral faction out there that does attack you when you anger them, but are not hostile on sight, I feel like it gives you too much of an ally faction if you're just smart with your attacks. If you're aware of your surroundings and you don't make any dumb mistakes while fighting enemies, you can just run Seekers and Gjall back to these guys and they can really destroy these enemies pretty quickly. I would like to see some hostile Dverger out in the open, or some encampments you come across that are too wary of humans, and they will attack you on sight, even if it's at a low rate. Or another way to handle this is to create a reputation system, which may not fit into Valheim, but it would give you a way to make it to where you can lose or gain reputation with the Dverger, where when you kill any Dverger, you lose reputation with them to the point that they all will become hostile across the map to you. And on the flip side of that, maybe we could bring them gifts such as gold, rubies, ambers, or pearls in order to increase our reputation with them, and maybe get sap extractors from them as a reward instead of having to kill them. So you would have choices with your character on how you want to handle these neutral NPCs, and if you want allies or more hostile enemies, and it could open up the way for future biomes or future enemies and NPCs added to have their own reputation and faction system with it. Now to talk a little bit about something I already thought was in the game, and it took me a little while to realize it was not. And that's Seeker Broods. I really thought that they grew into actual Seekers after a given amount of time. Through a little bit of testing I've done and playing through the Mistlands, this does not seem to be the case. And you can correct me if I'm wrong and you've experienced this, but they should really grow into full-grown Seekers over, say, a minute after they've spawned. This would give you a time crunch to kill these little guys before they pop into something much more dangerous. And having this mechanic would really toughen up the fight with the Queen, since she spawns these guys in large amounts. It would change your targeting acquisition to drop them as fast as possible, so that you can eliminate how many flying enemies are in the room. As it stands right now, Seeker Broods can be somewhat of a nuisance, but they die so fast that you don't really give them any thought or worry. And since they can't fly around like other Seekers, they don't pose that much of a threat. Adjusting how they work and having them grow into a much more dangerous enemy in a little bit of time would really change the dynamic and how you approach them and fight them. Speaking of the Queen fight, when my group took her down, she had what seems to be a glitch that some people are having, where she phased out or broke out of her imprisonment and went outside into the surrounding area. This happened about half health when we were fighting her, so at first I believed it to be part of their design, which I thought was great and brilliant. Upon further review, I've learned that this is a glitch and not supposed to be happening. But I do think that Iron Gate should reconsider it and have it become an actual mechanic that she leaves her den at a certain percentage of health. This opens up the fight and makes it kind of crazy. Even though the fight can be tough inside of a prison, it can get really wild outside if you have a Gjall roaming around, Dverger, or even other Seekers and Seeker soldiers. You don't know what to expect once you get outside there, and it can really make the fight interesting, and could go either way and be potentially harder or easier depending on your surrounding setup. Now, lore-wise in the game, she is supposed to be sealed inside this prison, but I feel like it fits that she could break out now since we broke the Dverger seal in order to open the door in the first place. If there was a magical barrier around it preventing her from leaving, I think that should be gone now, and she should be able to break out the walls and escape the room. Whether, technically speaking, she would break down walls to get out, or she would dig under the ground. I think they should make it to where the fight is a little bit different and not so static inside the same room the entire time, and she should move locations and make this fight really interesting. Speaking of her digging and burrowing underground to get outside, I think Seekers in general should have some form of burrowing mechanic or a single mob that burrows in the ground. Just take a look at their forelegs and how sharp those things are. They deal a ton of pierce damage to the player when they hit them, and there's no doubt in my mind that they should be able to dig with them. If you take a look at a lot of the insects in real life that can burrow into the ground, their forelegs aren't even as sharp and pointy as a Seeker's. So I don't think it's out of the realm of reason to have these guys burrow in the ground for particular attacks. Now, it might be too much to have Seekers flying around you and burrowing, so maybe have it be a special mechanic that's not even added to the normal Seekers, and give it to something like a Seeker Soldier. Seeker Soldiers, although dangerous in melee combat, are the ones that are easiest cheesed or confused in their AI by jumping up on something tall, since they cannot fly, and it gives you a way to get away from them and just range them down until they're gone. Giving these guys a burrow mechanic would eliminate your ability to escape them and get away or create large distances, even if Iron Gate puts it on a larger cooldown. have them only burrow every 30 seconds or a minute, go underground for a few seconds, and then pop out right at the player with a big knockback effect. This would make these guys really dangerous and something you really don't want to run into at the wrong time. And I think the Seeker's anatomy just fits a burrowing insect. Now, while we're on the topic of new attacks and the insects of the Mistlands, I think the ticks should be adjusted a little bit in how their damage is dealt. Currently, ticks deal their damage every half a second while attached to you. This damage is the same no matter how long the tick has been on you, and that's where I think they should consider changing them a little bit. I think that ticks should deal their damage lower at the beginning and then quickly ramp up in damage the longer they're on the player. One, this gives players time to be able to dodge roll out or get away from a tick's devastating damage when you might not even realize they're on you yet. And then it would punish players severely for managing their stamina poorly or not being able to roll to get one off by ramping up their damage really heavily and really quickly. It also makes sense from the point of view that we are being drained of our blood by these ticks. Although the bite would hurt regardless, we should become weaker the longer that they're on us, because we're losing out on more and more of our blood, which inevitably will make us weaker and weaker the longer it goes on. So right when it happens, you would feel the initial bite, but not really feel the effects of the blood missing, which would be low damage output in a video game. And then as we lost more and more blood, the damage would escalate because our body is weaker and not able to handle the little bit of damage that's happening quite as well. Doing something like this would also make it to where the root harness is not exactly a dominant piece against these guys, where as it stands right now, if you're wearing a root harness, you can leave ticks on your body and almost completely ignore them because the damage is so little. Where if it ramped up very quickly over time, at some point it would even start taking over the root harness ability to reduce the damage and start dealing large chunks of your health. And another thing you can do with these little guys is maybe multiply the damage based on how many ticks are on you, making it your absolute goal not to get multiple ticks on you, otherwise they would double each other's damage and really rip you up quickly. And the final thing that I want to talk about is the Gjall. I really like the Gjall enemy, I like the sound effects that they make, the fact that their presence is immediately known in the area, and they can be pretty devastating with their range attack when they can hit you. But what I do not like about these guys is how a lot of times they slowly move towards you to spawn some ticks on you, and then they just wait around to see what happens. I think they should have a more commanding presence in the melee range due to their sheer size. And you can see all of these tentacles that they have hanging from their body for no good reason. I think the Gjall's anatomy and design could really lend way for an AoE melee attack where they shake and twirl their tentacles around and knock players back in the area. This would eliminate you from being able to circle them really tightly and break their targeting system because they would just use their melee attack, and it could also knock you back or force you to dodge roll more, really setting you up to get bit by some ticks since you'd be low on stamina from any of these actions. Even if it's not in the form of an AoE melee attack, I would like to see the Gjall gain another attack from just their fireball so that they can be a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more diverse, creating more interesting combat scenarios. Now, I know a lot of the things that I talked about in this video had to do with Mistlands enemies and giving them more attacks. Unfortunately, I started playing the Mistlands after they did the update that nerfed all the Mistlands enemies, and I did not get to see how it originally launched. But in general, I kind of feel like the Mistlands is an easier biome to handle once you get a handle on the mists and understand your enemy. That's not to say that it's easy, but I do feel like enough time spent in there really gives you the upper hand against the enemies, and the main nuisance is simply the mist. I would like to see this adjusted and changed where the enemies stay a dangerous presence throughout the entirety of the journey in there, and the mist is something that you can conquer and start to overwhelm and overcome as you progress through the biome. I think it would feel a lot better in the Mistlands, have a lot more replayability, and even give you more reason to keep venturing back there after you've defeated the queen and moved on. With some of these changes that I have, you wouldn't have an unlimited supply of sap from the extractors. You would maybe be able to build a forever home here or a good farm base for the many mushrooms that exist here by removing the mist in the area. And when you do spend your time in the Mistlands, you would have to give much more credit and respect to the enemies in it if they had some more dynamic and dangerous attacks, which are just a few of the things that I would like to see. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts about the Mistlands, whether you liked it or didn't, and if there are changes that you would like to see and how exactly you would like those implemented. Like I said at the beginning of the video, Iron Gate does listen to the community, or at least they've shown that to this point in a lot of areas. This video may not ever be something any of them see, but I still enjoy talking about it and would like to get these ideas out there so that the best updates and changes can at least be discussed and figured out in case Iron Gate makes any updates to the game. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video and got something from it, and I will see you next time.